The lady says it's recording. Here we are on The Blind Man in Black. I'm Brian Snyder. Thank you for watching on YouTube and listening on Apple Podcast. If you like the show, please rate, subscribe, and review. And if you don't like it, go fuck yourself.
That was new.
I don't know. That's the mood I'm in today. If you want to see my wife and I being exhausting, go to the Exhausting Snyders on TikTok. And I think that's probably my mood. But one of the things I want to talk about is before I introduce my wife and co-host and our guest, is that we are doing a countdown to the 100th episode. And after the 100th episode, we are ending the show, and Rachel and I are going to start a new podcast. New
podcast.
New podcast. And we're working on the themes and so on, but we're looking for collaborators and specifically producer that wants to produce this new project that she and I are working on. But so I just want to throw that out there in the beginning, front load the show with that. We're very excited about it. We're getting much closer to finding a concept that we like. And we hope you like it as well. So my wife and co-host, Rachel Snyder, is here. She is the co-founder of Odd Salon San Francisco, former editor-in-chief of Atlas Obscura. She is a deaf positive advocate, a former funeral counselor, and she's currently writing a screenplay about her father's band called Searching for Absalom. Thank you, Rachel.
For Absalom.
I'm really overcorrecting because of how badly I fucked it up a while ago.
It's just like the book. You got literal Absalom.
No, I've been real tense lately. So my mouth and everything's just too tense. My body's just way too tense. So that's the reason I can't speak. But I'm really excited because this is a mystery. This is going to be exciting. We have a very, very, very special guest. She is a writer, a storyteller, and she kind of wanted me to leave it at that. Her name is Seana Miracle, and she may change her name. So who knows what the fuck she's going to be next time we talk to her.
And if you don't like it, go fuck yourself.
Thank you for being here, Seana.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's really an honor. So let's get into it. How are you holding together through the pandemic and climate change?
Well, I think I'm faring pretty well. I didn't have a lot of lifestyle adjustments to make as I was already disabled. And whereas disability was a very alienating experience, suddenly the whole world is affected by health problems that they have no control over. So I found quite a bit of more empathy from people, considering not having too much say over your own life, I live in a very peaceful, quiet house, and I like to read and write. And so it all worked out pretty good for me personally.
Now, I've read some of your Facebook posts, and it seems like sometimes it's not always peaceful and quiet. I mean, there's always a dumpster on fire. The police are showing up, which Bukowski would say that's the good thing. If the cops are there, something good's happening.
When the dumpster was on fire, the cops would not show up because it was considered too dangerous to come to my house. So I had to put it out with the garden hose.
Wow.
And that was the first dumpster fire. That by the third or fourth, I saw the dumpster on fire and I just went back to bed.
So let's it's amazing. You had a literal dumpster fire. And Rachel and we had metaphorical ones.
Yeah.
So
she had some metaphorical ones as well.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start at the beginning. Where are you from, and whom are you from?
I was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which could be a very tough town to grow up in. We're a fight city, and people tend to be a little more aggressive, generally speaking, a little harsher You know, if somebody shows up with a black eye, we would all laugh at them. And so there was a lot of culture shock when I moved to San Francisco and realized that people don't fight all the time, and that's not normal.
So you should have been in Oakland. If you were
I
in
should have
Oakland.
been.
If you had been across the bridge in Oakland, it would have been a little more like home.
Yeah, I did fit in. My first fight was like on Haight Street, and everybody was just kind of shocked that maybe violence wasn't called for. And I think I was 16 years old, and you know, I just had never been in a place where you didn't fight every day, and where those weren't valuable life skills to have, to be aggressive, to be intimidating, to have kind of a prison mentality.
So you brawl?
I've been in more fights than most people. It was literally like a daily experience. It was something you got ready to go to school, and you know, got ready to go to fight. And if we meet our friends at a bar out here, you know, it's like there's the emergency exit. You know, there's the bitch who wants to punch me, and don't let anyone grab my hair. And I'm 45 years old, and that's still the case. So people did it. People don't like fighting, you know. So these life skills I had acquired, you know, had no bearing in reality. And then when I came back to Albuquerque, you know, I'm right back in it. And so I think it definitely shapes my personality in a big way. And I think what I'm interested in most now has a lot to do with that. I study survivorship. You know, I've read every survivor story that was ever written, and I'm always looking for, you know, pro tips. And so it's been interesting to me how my survivorship is a lot more aggressive. For me, the fight for survival, the fight against forces over which I have no control. For me, that's, you know, I'm a gladiator going into an arena, and I'm a assault survivor, and I am dealing with the worst pain known to mankind, and people will tend to react to that with sympathy. And it's not that sympathy is unwarranted, it's just very inappropriate. You wouldn't tell a world champion bull rider to have a therapy session before he got on that bull. You wouldn't tell him how much you felt sorry for all his broken bones, or, you know, for me, it's definitely a fight mentality. And that's the sympathy tends to, like, I have like a physical repulsion from it, because it's like, whoa, I'm going into battle, I'm fighting for my survival, and, you know, I need to be strong, and I need to be brave, and empowered, emboldened. And so I tend to look for stories of other survivors that bolster that within me.
So how was your childhood? What was going on there? What were your parents
Very
like?
traumatic. I lost my virginity when I was 2 years old. So I just wasn't old enough to really comprehend any of it, and developed a severe dissociative disorder. There are entire years of my life that are just completely blanked out. And then additionally, I was in a car accident where I had a retrograde and anterograde amnesia, which meant I not only didn't remember my past, I wasn't able to form new memories. And I was 14 years old. So that's a very big dividing line in my life, is before the accident and after the accident. And spent most of my adult life, you know, trying to sort out what happened to me in my childhood, what I forgot. And I think, you know, mostly I forgot who I was. There was the last thing you lose as far as states of consciousness is your identity. And I think I spent the next, 30 years trying to piece that back together.
Wow.
It was, yeah, life shattering. I mean, I woke up in the hospital and I didn't know what my name was. And they asked me, do you know where you are? And I said, well, yeah, I'm in a hospital. And they said, do you know what your name is? And it was like, why are you asking me these stupid questions? Of course I know what my name is. And it's, and I just couldn't recall. When I went home, I didn't recognize my room. I didn't know who my friends were, except that I was told that these are your friends. They come over all the time. So there was a lot at first that I just accepted as okay, based on what other people had told me. But that's a very interesting way to view your own life, is through other people's eyes, other people's memories, other people's ideas of who you are and why you did the things you did, So trying to not be erased, if you don't have memory of your experiences, how do you learn? How do you grow? There are people that played a big part of my life that if I ran into them, I would have no idea who they were, including my ex-husband, Mr. Miracle. I saw him at a last gas party and I thought, wow, that guy's hot. And for about an hour and a half, milled around the party and looking over my shoulder at this really good looking guy. And why is he staring at me? Right. Well, because I married him 3 times. And of all the human beings on the face of the earth, he was the one person that should have provoked a profound emotional response for me. The one person I would really want to run into at a party, or, had something to say to and hadn't seen in a long time, and no reaction whatsoever. I had no idea who he was. When I figured it out, because I had to ask him why he was staring at me, he was there with his wife. And now I'm stuck there and I have to pretend that not only do I know who he is, but that I remember anything about our marriage, which I don't. So he would say, oh, Aunt Bunny, she just misses you so much and she just always loved you. And I'm like, yeah, Aunt Bunny. So that's been a lot of faking it. There's people who hate me that probably have a really good reason to hate me. I just don't remember what it is. Yeah.
So how long were you married to him?
Oh, well, not a very long period of time, but we got married and divorced, and 2 weeks later got married again, got divorced again, decided on a domestic partnership. And it was doomed, to fail from the start. Yeah, totally doomed. He was a sex addict and I was just an absolute hot mess. And but other than that, he was a great husband. We had a lot of fun together.
How long did the relationship span?
9 months. Most of it divorcing, Yeah.
Yeah, that does take a while.
My son calls him my triple X.
That's good.
That's funny.
Yeah, but I don't regret a minute of it.
I do want to get back to the amnesia stuff, but what did your parents do?
What did my parents do when the accident happened?
No, I just mean in general, like growing up, what kind of life?
My whole family is in the legal profession and in politics. And my parents were criminal defense attorney. My mother was a public defender. My father was a criminal defense. My grandmother worked for the Supreme Court. My father became a Supreme Court justice. My uncles, everybody. So I just grew up in courtrooms.
Now, were you expected to become
Yes.
a lawyer?
And well, anytime my stepmom has an interesting case. I like to pretend that I am one. Knowing absolutely nothing about the law or whatever, but I'm great at arguing. I really felt stifled by the formalism of the courtroom.
Rachel thinks that I'm an attorney with her a lot.
You would make a great attorney. Yes.
He
So
really
would
would. Yeah, and I think between the two of us, yeah, that could. I try
you
not
guys
to
should
avoid.
do a case together.
I actually, I did the LSAT. I didn't do that well.
You did.
But I did apply to law schools, but I only applied to like Harvard and Northwestern and
I
So-
admire your confidence.
Right?
so
I hear
I have-
Georgetown's a good law school.
what's that?
I hear Georgetown.
I did not apply to Georgetown.
See,
Just Harvard.
Harvard, what was it? Columbia, Northwestern. Yeah, I didn't get into any of them.
well,
But that's all right. I did it. I know my application was shitty, but that's all right. But I did
I
watch.
Your
admire-
arguing is on point.
What's that?
Your arguing is on point.
Thank you. But I did watch a lot of movies set in courtrooms. That helps.
yeah, yeah, it definitely does. You know,
A lot of Perry Mason.
Yeah, I think you should have a background in theater. You know, it's about engaging an audience. It's about making the jury like you better than they like the other guy.
Right. Yeah, well, I do have that theater background, so I had that going for me. But I think the way the LSAT is designed is they're looking for a very specific type of thinking.
Hmm.
I don't know. Have you taken the LSAT?
Oh no, I had just absolutely no interest in going into law. None.
I hear you. I hear you. All right. Well, so I mean, that must have been difficult. Like, how were I mean, so you had the accident, what, at 14, you said?
Yes.
And so from then on, you had to basically like memento your life, right? Like basically kind of put it back together and understand who you were, correct?
Yeah, I mean, throughout my life, I mean, I think the years following the accident was a lot of like piecing things together, and I almost always was in some form of identity crisis. And you know, at that age, you're trying to find yourself anyways. Then I sort of had a grasp on it, or so I thought, and I also thought that the effects, you know, were this big kind of lightning flash in my life that was very disruptive, but you know, it was 10 years, 15 years in the past. But that running into my husband was not that long ago, and had no idea who he was.
So, so that, I mean, so
I
you
was married to
continue,
him after the accident, obviously.
right? But I mean, so you continually have these lapses of memory.
Huge lapses, and with people that and experiences that are very okay. Another example is an ex-boyfriend contacts me on Facebook. I haven't seen him in 15 years, and we've been chatting for weeks, and my dad and my stepmom come to lunch in San Francisco, and I'm at the restaurant. I said, "Oh, you remember my ex-boyfriend?" And my stepmom's like, "Yeah, I remember your ex-boyfriend who got you pregnant and left you in the hospital." And I was like, "Whoa, no,
Oh, no.
I
Like,
was never
easy.
pregnant. Okay, I never, none of this, like, what are you talking about?" I got in a fight with her, and they left. They had to catch a plane, and I go home, and I call my mom, and I'm like, "I don't know, she's talking about me being pregnant. What?" My mom's like, "Yeah, honey, you were pregnant and you had this miscarriage." And it was this big drama. Like, it was on camera, and ambulances came, and there were celebrities there. I was a waitress, and I was serving Bryan Cranston coffee, and I just like passed out, and I don't remember any of this. So I was like,
So
"What?"
you were a waitress and you served Bryan Cranston coffee. Is that when they were doing
Yeah.
Breaking Bad?
Before Breaking Bad, it was Malcolm in the Middle, and it was the
Did they
cast of
film that
Malcolm
in
Middle.
Albuquerque?
Yeah, in Albuquerque.
I did not know that. That's one of my brother's favorite shows.
That's a great show. Yeah. Yeah, I
I
already
haven't
love
seen it.
Brian Cranston.
You haven't seen
I
it?
don't
That's a great
remember
show.
serving him coffee. I don't remember passing out. I don't remember the ambulance coming. I don't remember going to the hospital. So I called the ex-boyfriend and I'm like, pregnant? What? And he's like, oh yeah, like I was, you didn't bring it up, so I thought you didn't want to talk about it. And he tells me, well, it's like very traumatic and I couldn't walk for 3 months and I was really depressed. And so I was like, oh, so that's why we broke up. You just couldn't take it anymore, And he said, well, no, we did break up, but we got back together and everything was great and we were going to get married. And I said, well, what happened? He says, well, we had this great weekend of sex and great food and, talked about our future plans. And he's like, and then you said you were going to go home and take a shower, get some clothes, come back. He said, 3 days later, I showed up with my head shaved, smelling of whiskey, being a bitch to him for no reason, said, I'm here to get my shit. Didn't even talk to him. Walked out the door and he's like, yeah, and I never saw you again.
What was that about?
I have no idea. And then I'm left there asking him, what was I thinking? How did I feel? Why did I do that? Well, did I want a baby? Was I upset about not having a baby? Well, and nobody can answer those questions for me. I've heard that story now from my mom, my dad, my ex-boyfriend, and I try and piece it together, but that's not an actual memory. I don't remember how I felt about any of it.
Can I ask you, how do you feel about these lapses of memory? Like what, like
It's very scary. It's very confusing. There's nobody I can turn to for guidance. There's nobody I can turn to help me sort it out. It's not something your typical therapist is, skilled enough to take on. And so it's made me, made me very, I'm an isolate, I have a hard time with socializing because I go out and someone says hi to me and I'm like, oh my God, do I know you? Did I sleep with you? Did I fuck you up?
Shave my head, did we get in a fight? Was Brian Cranston?
One time I was at a party, so I introduced myself and said, hi, I'm Seana. And the guy said, I know, and spit a loogie in my face, and I was just like, did I deserve that? I don't know.
well, I mean, so it seems like there's a couple things happening here. So you have the lapses of memory. Are they consistent or do they just happen? And like how far back do you remember, like right now?
Oh, I mean, I can have these childhood memories from really young. Sometimes I guess what's weird is sometimes I'll have periods where I do remember everything and it's all sorted out and I can put it into chronological order. And then it's like a state of mind and I'll switch out of it, forget everything. I think it has a lot to do with like survival mode and that my brain can only handle so much at a time or whatever.
So more the dissociative disorder than the accident, or maybe that the accident compounded.
I think it started when I was 2 years old and I don't remember the sexual abuse, but what I know from what I do remember is that it was violent. It wasn't like a nice old man, like grandpa grooming me with candy and, it was violent. It was, I had no power, I had no control, I was totally helpless. And I was just and I didn't, nobody in my family knew what was going on. Nobody was there to protect me. I didn't have anyone to turn to. And that's definitely, the way with my chronic pain, I was definitely on my own. With the amnesia, I was definitely on my own. There wasn't an expert I could turn to for advice. There wasn't a roadmap for how you deal with this particular problem, and people don't understand it. Amnesia, people think it's a cheap literary device, so it's really hard to make people understand. I'm not a movie. I'm not, I don't need to add sparkle and drama to my life. So with and the chronic pain, the not being believed made me stop wanting to be believed. I just don't care. It's irrelevant to me. It's irrelevant to the story. whether you believe me or not. Yeah.
So now there's the other part of it is, what did you, I mean, what was that whole thing about that guy hawking a loogie in your face? What was that about?
Oh, I have no idea. No, I mean, I was a hellraiser when I was young, definitely.
So
And
what did you do? How did you raise hell?
I mean,
Now the
how
statute of limitations,
I was a
as your
child.
attorney, the statute of limitations is probably passed.
The most
Would be the
used
time to
word-
say you don't remember.
I got told a lot that I was out of control. That, you know, that was used a lot. I was a feral creature. I wasn't there, I wasn't beholden to any rules. I was extremely defiant.
Sounds like Rachel.
Oh yeah, she's my soul sister.
We're friends for a reason. We connected immediately for a reason.
It's the same reason I adopted my dog. That defiance is a mark of survivorship. And so I tend to value survivorship. That's why I value Rachel so highly, because Rachel actually has knowledge and skills and tools that will help me to survive. She provides a good role model for me on how to be brave, how to be strong, how to hold it together even when it's all falling apart. And you know, that's shamanism. I mean, it's like transforming pain into something that empowers and inspires other people. And those are the stories that matter to me, that I look for.
So, I mean, we're going to get to how you met Rachel, but if you can discuss like about all the characteristics that you just described, how did you discover that?
About Rachel?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because I guess I did kind of meet her in a professional setting.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Facebook.
Hard to remember that now.
Facebook.
because I you know, tell everybody all my business, right?
Rachel's very open. She doesn't, it'd be hard to shame her, and I think that's the point of her being open. And that's part of the role model, is that, you know, most people on Facebook are trying to really cover up who they are and present a false image, and it comes off as very insincere. People are reposting memes, whereas Rachel is posting from a personal perspective, and it's much more engaging, it's much more interesting. You know, if somebody had said some of those things in the memes on their own, I would be much more interested in it.
That's why Facebook means a lot to me, Brian Snyder.
Yes, I know. So, I mean, what did you do after? I mean, how is it like? I mean, it's difficult to piece things together. So, like, what are some of the fond memories of your childhood that you remember?
Oh, I grew up in this wonderful old house down by the river, and my parents would have a theater.
Rio Grande?
The Rio Grande, yes.
Yeah.
It was an old, I guess, where monks grew wine. Anyways, the house was like 300-year-old adobe with these 3-foot walls, and it was cottonwood forest, and my parents built a stage, and they hung speakers from the cottonwood trees, and they would have live music playing for 3 days, and we would build hornos, like bread ovens in the backyard, and we would put on pornographic versions of plays. So Alice in Wonderland, my mother would rewrite the script to be really dirty and then send it out to everyone. You had to memorize your lines and show up in costume and in character and just put on the play.
How old were you when they were doing this?
Like 3 or 4.
Now, when you say pornographic, are you talking about just the language of pornographic?
Like, I have childhood memories of this giant penis being walked on a leash with like hairy balls rolling down the stage, you know. I was a croquet ball in Alice in Wonderland. Like, it was pretty dirty. It was pretty naughty. Yeah. I was never censored, I guess.
What was that all about?
We lived in a little town called Los Lunas, and they were called the Los Lunatics. And I thought, because all my parents and their friends were like lawyers and judges and important people, I thought that lunatic meant, you know, like attorney,
Mhm.
like something important, like somebody important. So I would introduce myself and say, I'm Shauna and I am a lunatic. And people would be like, that's nice to hear. You know, it took me years before I found out what that word meant.
So you basically were living in an eyes wide shut party.
Oh, Bill Gates went to one of those parties. Yeah, my aunt clearly recollects meeting him there. And yeah, yeah, I mean, lawyers, they can party.
Wow. Bill Gates was there. Was he in any of the plays?
No, I don't think he was.
Hmm.
But yeah, he made his start in Albuquerque out of a garage in Albuquerque, and it was the right era and everything. So
Holy shit. Wow. So,
but when those childhood memories started coming back in the context of the amnesia, I would have these like profound visual imagery of like a headless horseman riding down on me. And I would think, oh, well, that's, you know, like where you construct a memory from reading a book or watching a movie or something. And then my mom would say, oh, no, you know, that was your Aunt Tinkerbell and she was Ichabod Crane for Halloween. And that was a great party. Right. So there was these really very surreal imagery that came out of my childhood that came from that, you know, like, why am I seeing a giant hairy balls or whatever? So
is that a fond memory of seeing giant hairy balls?
oh yeah, the plays, I mean, we had costumes and makeup, and we did Midsummer's Night's Dream, and everyone was dressed as fairies, and I was a 4-year-old, and you know, I was like, I want to be a fairy. So yeah, it was magical.
So now, you know, one of the things that I have trust issues. And when I first met Rachel, one of the things that I told her was, I think it's very important that you know, tell me the truth and, you know, not lie by omission. And it was very important to me. Now, in the context of that, like, I'm going to ask you the question, when you had your accident afterwards, did you ask people, say, listen, I don't remember shit. So I need you to tell me the truth and not, you know.
Oh no, because I mean, all my effort was put into just trying to pretend to be normal.
And it's not really a realistic request anyway.
Like I was just trying so hard to like pretend like I knew what the fuck was going on, or I knew what people were talking about, and you know, and not like let on. And who would I turn to for help? You know, my friends,
Go ahead.
my peers weren't like equipped to understand any of that.
I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is I have to fucking record everything. Like, I have to have a go cam on me at all times.
Right, so that you don't get gaslit.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. And then also just, I mean, I can imagine that it's frustrating to like have these lapses and go, fuck, I don't remember that at all, you know, and maddening a little bit, right?
Oh yeah, and you know, it could be heartbreaking too. It was like when that ex-boyfriend came into my life, like this was, and it should have been for me as well, the most traumatic emotional thing that had ever happened to him. And so he remembers everything. And you know, the whole time we're talking, I'm just going, and I'm taking notes, right? But I'm taking notes of his version of the story, which is probably very different from my own. And then he'll say, and do you remember that present you got me? Or do you remember that outfit? Or you details? And I'm just like, you know, sorry. Like I keep telling you, I don't remember. So you know, trying not to hurt people's feelings.
How do people respond when you say, I don't remember?
Oh, I don't generally tell people, but when I have had to explain to like close family members and stuff that I had amnesia, I mean, they were there for the accident, but there doesn't seem to be any awareness of anyone around me, like what I was going through at the time. Like, it's not like I got, released from the hospital and they were like, oh, my daughter needs help because she just had this traumatic brain injury. I think I moved out of the house like a couple weeks later. My arm was still in a cast and I had just turned 14 years old. And I dropped out of school, got a job at the mall, got an apartment, and I was just,
In Albuquerque,
yeah.
I said Albuquerque really weird.
Albuquerque.
Albuquerque.
Yeah, so I could not have been like more vulnerable. I mean, not only like I can't imagine my 14-year-old child doing that, but I was really like had no idea who I was. So yeah, it made things quite challenging.
So where did you, I mean, what was the catalyst for moving out?
Gosh, probably a lot to do with the after effects of the accident. My mom and I didn't get along. I never felt safe at either one of my parents' house. So, I think that was a lot of it. Yeah.
So where did you go after that?
Well, I did that for a while, and I was actually interviewed for a TV show. I was 14 years old. I'm living on my own, and the local news came and interviewed me as a success story, which seemed perfectly normal to me at the time. But now it's just like hilarious. I was the worst example ever. So I was going to college and I was, working full time and etc. I don't know. After that, I turned 16. I got my driver's license.
And how
And
did your parents take you moving out?
well, my mother was aware of it. My father was just not aware of it. And so it wasn't until this news interview came out, like I turned up on the local news teaching the reporter how to make espresso. And one of his friends saw it and told him about it. And that
How
was
was
like,
he not aware of it? What, I mean, was,
he's a
I
very
mean,
busy man.
so he was so wrapped up in his law practice that he had no idea what was happening at all at home, that you had moved out?
Yeah, for 2 years.
Holy shit.
2 years, yeah. So I don't remember actively lying to him about it, but it's possible that I did. And then when I turned 16, I got my driver's license and I bought a car for $250. And that was it. I was gone to San Francisco.
Why did you choose San Francisco?
I have absolutely no idea. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know about the Victorian houses. I didn't know about Alcatraz. I mean, I was really young. I have no idea. And the fact is I never really went anywhere else. That was home and that was it.
So what did you do when you arrived there?
In San Francisco, well, I moved in with a band called the Flaming Lips for a short period of time. And then I moved in with another band called the Brian Jonestown Massacre. And we lived across the street, and we lived in the dog patch, and we lived across the street from the Hells Angels clubhouse.
Hmm.
And they were all very interesting characters. I was like most entertained.
Rachel has some experience there.
I do.
Oh yes, yeah, she's my soul
Very-
sister. I told you.
Very entertaining.
So, were you, when you say you moved in with a band, were you like, were you playing with them or were you helping them or what was that about?
No, with the Brian Jonestown Massacre, the guitar player was one of my boyfriend's older brother. And I just adored him. He was like a lot of fun to be around. But they were also like junkies from hell, at least at the time. So all of my friends, their first time doing heroin was probably in that house. I did it once, didn't care for it, you know, but it was a huge influence on all of us, I guess.
What didn't you
Now, how
like?
did you feel about your life, living in San Francisco versus Albuquerque?
Well, I didn't have to fight every day,
Mhm.
so that was nice. I also didn't deal. We have like a rape culture here, where uh, it's a machismo, macho. You know, if a man commits some kind of, he abuses a child, abuses a woman, rapes a woman, whatever, he's very mollycoddled. There's nobody to put him straight, because the culture like will support the man, villainize the victim. I didn't deal with any of that in San Francisco. And as soon as I came back to New Mexico, I've been to an abortion clinic for the first time in my life, two domestic violence shelters, the FBI office. You know, it's like violence is just par for the course, and violence towards women is just supported by the entire community. So
So, where did you go from there after those bans?
I got pregnant, 17. Not from any band members.
Or their brothers?
No, I was really into skater dudes, you know. And 17, pregnant. I don't think I was like actually planning on having a child or anything. Came back to Albuquerque, and my mother pretty much said I didn't have a choice. The choice was either, you know, I was going to have the baby, and she was very adamant about no baby leaves this family. And so I could adopt it within the family. I could adopt it outside of the family. I mean, I could not adopt it outside of the family. I would have to give it to like my big sister or something. So I guess I just went along with all that. And ended up back in my mother's house and pregnant. And I think I moved out before he was born. And his birth was very, very painful, very traumatic, and easy though, but psychologically traumatic. And then it's my 18th birthday, and there I was, you know, in Albuquerque, pregnant, stuck. Yeah, it was awesome.
So, where did your child go? Did it go to a family member?
Well, he was with me for some time. I was trying to leave my family. And yeah, ultimately he ended up with my dad.
Mhm.
And my stepmom. Yeah, and he doesn't talk to me today. He hates my guts, and I'm the worst mother that ever existed. And you know, he's probably right.
You see him though, right? Like he's around, right? No.
No, if he does see me, it's like really uncomfortable. I can't, like, you know, go up and give him a hug. I can't be like, I miss you. I can't be like, how are you? I can't communicate with him on any level. And you know, I've begged, when my mother's funeral, I begged him to come, and I got nowhere. So no, it's just like a stone wall. And the more he resists, the less I want to intrude on his life, you know. So I don't feel like I did the wrong thing by giving him up. I think like being in my life would have been very difficult and traumatic for anyone. I don't think a grown-up could have handled it. So I don't really harbor like guilt like that. And then I feel like any effort to communicate with him or reach out to him is selfish and not in his best interest necessarily. So I just sit here and I wait, and I hope one day. But the truth is, you know, it might not happen.
He's in his early 20s, right? Or mid 20s now?
Late 20s.
Late 20s.
Yeah. So I don't know that he would want it any other way either. Like if either one of us would go back and change the past.
I think it's hard to get perspective on that stuff until you're in your 30s or 40s anyway, you know, just to look back. I think that's when everybody kind of looks back and reflects a little bit on their parents and the mistakes that they made and kind of go, oh, well, maybe that was a good idea. Everybody's different, but you know, it seems like that his age he's in now is not the age for it. It's the blame age.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm a fucking hot mess and it's your fault.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've been the scapegoat for the whole family, and I feel like, you know, I guess I'm just used to the role, and if I can play that, if that could be a benefit to him, like, good, like, right on. I'm the perfect person to blame for all your problems.
Can I blame you for my problems?
Yeah, totally. I choose my little sister, like, it's her fault, everything. Yeah. Good to have a scapegoat, fall guy.
I wouldn't do that, but
right now he blames the universe, and that's kind of, it's
yeah,
not
the
it.
universe does not want what I want ever. Well, I mean, that's not true. Sometimes it does, and I'm very grateful when it goes smoothly.
I think it's Siri. It's Siri that doesn't want what you want more than
That
anyone.
bitch.
Hey Siri.
Get me out of this.
Siri hates Brian. Siri hates Brian.
Do
They
you
have
want
such
what
a-
I want? He doesn't want for much.
He doesn't want for much, so that means no. That's taking that as a no.
It's the algorithms, Brian.
It is. So, where did your love of writing come from?
Oh, my whole family are Wild Westers, and it's, I think, a part of the Wild West culture is to tell tall tales, campfire stories, ghost stories. So when I went to my mother's funeral and met my relatives, it was like very obvious to me where it came from. We're very animate, you know.
And she's a fantastic writer.
I've
Thank
seen
you.
her post.
Oh, that's not my writing. That's just
not-
like
that's
Facebook is the complaint department, and I just like unload all my negative baggage there.
Facebook's just like it's like a practice page. Like it's the
just
scribbles
like-
that you do before you actually go write.
You don't have to edit it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to care. And part of it's just like not caring what people think. You kind of have to get that out of your system so you can be truthful in your writing, I guess. But no,
Yeah.
it's best to write not without an audience, I think, and then put it forth and let people react the way they want to, you know.
So,
But I think I'm the first person to attempt to write an autobiography about amnesia. I mean, how do I write a book about things I can't remember or don't understand, you know?
yeah, because I would think that it would be very difficult to trust people, you know, like how would you know if somebody, you know, one of the things issue with me is I'm not able to look into people's eyes and see what's going on there. And that tells a lot. You know, you can tell if somebody's lying, if they, you know, they're tells.
See,
And-
That's true.
I totally disagree.
What's that?
I think that I disagree. I mean, we've argued about this before, but I don't think, I mean, you can sometimes, but you can't all the time. And so I don't think that, you know, you either have to choose to trust people or just not trust anybody, but being cited or having a great memory, none of that keeps you from being lied to. In my experience. Or
I know what you're talking about though, because I look for microaggressions, you know, and if I sense contempt from somebody, I will definitely like distance from them, you know, and that's a very small little thing that you pick up on, that they're sneering at you or they're kind of looking down on you or something. And yeah, that would be hard to without sight.
Well, I'm not saying that those things are used as tools to keep yourself safe. I mean, obviously, Sean and I both have, you know, trauma issues, and we are people watchers and read people, you know, a lot better than a lot of people do. But I'm just saying it's not the end all be all. Like, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get lied to or tricked, or, you know, it just, without those tools, it's easier probably, but it doesn't, you know, keep you safe.
Well, the other thing is, you know, you mentioned gaslighting earlier. Like, how do you know when somebody is intentionally like saying, oh, this happened, Seana, and you're going to have to, you know what I mean? Like, how do you know?
Well, it was really interesting because, coming back to my hometown after like a 20-year absence, and I had the best of intentions of wanting to heal old wounds, and I had changed and grown as a person, and I wanted to, apologize for any wrongs I had committed, and I was being very, self-aware and self-evaluative. And pretty much as soon as I got back to town, I was accused of like everything that people were upset with me about were just things that were so far from reality that I couldn't even defend myself. I was accused of being a prostitute, a child molester, a kidnapper. Just any shitty ass term, derogatory thing that you could say about somebody. I got hit with all of it. And I was in this really self-evaluative state. And what I had to accept was like, oh, whoa. It's really not that bad, right? It's like all of this was made up. It's just not even, has nothing to do with me, right? Now, my son has also heard these things about me. And how do I address that? I can't even ask him how he's doing. So there's people who I actually really care what they think about me. That think horrible things about me. And when these things were said, I have the group text where, okay, so my mom's dying. I'm up there busting ass, like trying to help and take care of her and be a good daughter. She's with a very abusive man. And I call him out on the abuse. In fact, I report him to the authorities. And so his reaction to that was to go clean out her jewelry box, throw all of her jewelry into a garbage bag, and give it to his daughter. Then when my sister, my brother, everybody else shows up, he goes and opens the jewelry box and like, Barbara, what happened to all your jewelry? Oh, nobody else could be here. Only Seana was here, And I have the group text of my entire family going, well, Seana, she's just, you have to keep her separate from her mother, and you have to, just saying horrible things about me. Not one person in this group of 50 people said, I don't think Seana did that. I'm going to ask Seana her side of the story. Not one person. So it was this really harsh thing reading those texts and realizing that I had like 50 people who were working against me, who would not defend me. And, do I care to defend myself to them? No. Luckily, the jewelry came back and I was somewhat vindicated, but and if it hadn't, I'm sure that would be an accusation to my dying day or whatever. So people do really malicious things, and maligning your reputation is just the easiest way to go about it. If you never have a chance to defend yourself, if all these things are being said behind your back. So in a way, I'm grateful because I've kind of been released from identifying with any of it. That's not me. That's not, there's nothing, there is no appropriate response to that. What do I say about the jewelry? What do I say about the accusations of being a prostitute? Like, you just stop caring.
I think that there's something really freeing about that personally, because I've experienced it as well. And it's just, at some point you just have to give up, because you can't, especially if it's things that you can't prove anything, either way. So it's just, at some point you just have to accept that the people who trust you and believe you will believe you, and everyone else can go fuck themselves. And that's just, they get to choose, and then you don't have to, and you don't have to worry about it. And you are absolutely right about, why I dump everything on Facebook. It is so no one else can call me out on anything. I call myself out first, and I put it all out there, and then there's no skeletons in the closet, and there's nothing anyone can say. I'm not hiding anything, and those are all protective things. But yeah, I think experiencing what you experience is almost a good thing, in the sense that you let go of all of those trappings of needing people to believe you and needing people to understand you. If they're not, they're not. And and that's a lot of weight.
They're lost, they're missing out. It's just, it's not my loss. It's not my problem, or it's not my job to make people believe me. You don't even have to suspend disbelief, as far as I'm concerned. You can just totally that I have a really good imagination, because as a writer, that works for me. You think I'm making this stuff up? Like, awesome. Yeah. But Rachel, the chapter I'm working on right now is about the Native American contrary. And, you know, when you became a contrary, you had to live in opposition to all social norms. And a big part of that was you had to tell stories that were embarrassing, that did not paint you in a flattering light. And the reason for that was to demonstrate for the public good what the state of shamelessness was, that you were above humiliation. It was your job to kind of provoke that in other people and make them see that the things that make us feel shame or feel humiliation are just, you know, false constructs or whatever. So I definitely see myself as a contrary, I think, in any lifetime, and relate to provocateurs and relate to people turning things on their head, you know. That's an admirable quality to me, even if I find you, you know, offensive or distasteful.
Yeah, exactly. And Brian, that might explain to you my, you know, my obsession with a certain local gadfly.
I mean, Trump. I am like, as I am true blue to the core, born and raised Democrat, libtard, San Francisco values libtard. And the subversive in me, you know, just begrudgingly respects him.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
He is so effective at antagonizing people, you know, and I wish we had a female version of him fighting on the other side.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Right? I was kind of hoping, like, I don't really like Kamala, but you know, she gets kind of spicy on the Senate floor or whatever, right? And so I thought she was gonna get up there and start talking smack or being controversial, and she's got a muzzle on, you know, which is like so disempowering. You know, as a woman, I was so excited about having a woman in the White House, whoever she was. Someone speaking for women. And she won't speak up. She doesn't talk back. She's like very not what I expected. And then
she did it first. She was sassy at first, I feel like.
Yeah, I was expecting it from her. That's, you know.
But she did a lot of like, I'm talking, a lot of that, which I loved.
Yeah, she's like a school marm. Yeah. But there hasn't been a lot of strong female voices, except then on the Republican side, you see these women saying whatever they want, and they are off the leash, you know, and I'm like, this is a weird role reversal. I thought it would be me, you know, starting the dumpster fire, not putting it out with the garden hose. And I thought it would be me that would be the loudmouth subversive or whatever. And instead I was just like Rodney King on, I was like, can we all get along? You know, yeah, it's definitely not what I expected from any of this.
So where did you go after you gave birth?
Let's see. I was 18 when I gave birth. I think Ajeo was like 9 months old, and I moved back to San Francisco. I had a beautiful house in the Richmond with a rose garden and back, and it opened into Golden Gate Park, and I had a killer job. I was making lots and lots of money. And
what were you doing?
I was a massage therapist for Muay Thai fighters, and it was super lots of fun. And I made bank. And so, you know, I'm 19 years old. I've got the dog. I've got the baby stroller. I've got this killer job. I got stacks of cash. I got the fat house. And I thought, oh, you know, I don't know why people are acting like this life's just so difficult. You just get a job, get a house, you know what? And on my son's first birthday party, I was going to answer the door for the first guest and fell down the stairs. My leg snapped backwards. I dropped the baby. Had to have this massive knee surgery, you know, couldn't walk, lost the job, lost the house, lost everything in like a matter of like 2 weeks. So yeah.
That's horrible.
Taught me to get overconfident. So back in Albuquerque, stuck again. Yeah. And then I don't, excuse me 1 second, I'm so sorry.
All right.
The dog.
Dog. Our child, I just heard a thumping. He's running so thunkily downstairs that my desk is shaking.
Sorry about that. She's in charge.
Right, he goes downstairs like a little elephant. That my desk is shaking. He's stomping his feet so loud. I'm surprised he hasn't busted in here yet.
So what happened after that?
The 20s, who knows? Yeah, I don't really remember that period of my life when my son was small. I don't, it's a good 7 years that are like.
Well, okay,
So-
let's go after the 7 years then.
Marriage, divorce. So I get married and I have a killer job. I'm working for a forensic psychologist in Oakland. And so it was really exciting stuff we were doing, and I was good at it. And I started with my ankles. My ankle was hurting. And then the next thing I knew, it was like moving up my legs. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'd hit the BART station and hit the stairs and just weep at the thought of having to go down those stairs and get to work, clock in, settle in, go outside and weep and go back in, pull it together, get through another hour, go to the bathroom and weep. I was just in so much pain and I had no idea what was wrong with me, but I was hoping that we would figure it out and then fix it. And so it was 3 days before Christmas. They told me that I had a chronic condition, that there was no hope for treatment or cure. And my husband, upon hearing that news, decided to divorce me, said I was damaged goods. And so here's my brilliant career trajectory is in the toilet. And within 2 weeks, I have to ask my husband for $5 so that I can go buy tampons when I was making more money than he did when we got married. So I just went from having everything to being totally helpless, in a lot of pain, totally disabled, and in this whole new reality of trying to figure out how to live on $5,000 a year and still maintain, still get dressed, still, stay online, still maintain some connection to the outside world. So I was isolated, I was home alone a lot, and I read a lot, and I guess I just started kind of spewing it out into writing. The nonfiction was definitely easier for me when it wasn't autobio. And so I was really running from autobio because it's a story of amnesia. It's really hard to write about, and started writing a book that I thought had totally nothing to do with me personally. Just informative and interesting and entertaining. And every single chapter, I would end up writing into myself, and I would find out that the subject matter that I had tackled was, completely relevant to everything I'm going through and everything that I'm doing. So my brain is a marvelous animal in that respect, that it can do so much without me being conscious of it. And so now this book that was, I thought had nothing to do with me, and it doesn't, but it's deeply, deeply personal. And it's about, well, it's about suicide clubs, but they're not, it's not necessarily about suicide, but it is, but it isn't. And I really see it as like a life affirming book. I hope that I'm giving people like real valuable tools and skills and how to survive hardship by telling other people's stories, and then there's my own.
How did you meet Rachel? Do you remember?
Odd Salon Treasure.
That's right. You talked about Catalina Island.
Yeah, my friend John told me that you have to meet these girls. Like, you're just gonna love them, and you have to like hook up with these girls at Otsalon. And so, yeah, John Law was the one who sent me to you.
Oh,
And it's
I
like
forgot about that. I forgot that that was where you came from.
yeah, he was just like, you're gonna love these girls, and I did. Love the whole thing.
So John Law, Brian, is a Burning Man celebrity and a San Francisco icon, who does amazing things. And when we caught his attention with Oddsland, we were very, very impressed with ourselves because he's a very interesting person, and to be interesting to him is a big deal.
He's very supportive. He's been like a stalwart, like mentor. He pushes me all the time, you know, to work and to get more done, and you know, but doesn't try and exploit me. Like, he's been a great mentor, and yeah, you definitely feel lucky that he cares enough.
You know, we all made t-shirts when you said John Law is right. Was right.
Yeah.
So what does he do?
Oh, I think he's a janitor or something. Yeah, he works on several of the bridges in Oakland, and his day job is I believe signage, fixing like the neon signs, like the Oakland Tribune building and the Embarcadero, but that's not at all what he does. And he's famous for Burning Man stuff, but that's not at all what he does. He's kind of anti-Burning Man in a lot of ways.
Yeah, which is he was right. That's hence the
Yeah, that
t-shirt.
was correct. I mean, so like, I never went to Burning Man, so it's not how I would see him. He had his hands in a little bit of everything: Cacophony Society, Suicide Club.
What is a suicide club?
Well, I'm writing a book on it.
You can read about it when the book comes out.
So the Suicide Club, there was a short story written by Robert Louis Stevenson in 1877, entitled The Suicide Club, that influenced people starting them all over America, and it became a founding principle of the labor movement. And the Suicide Club wasn't necessarily about committing suicide, but that every book that is censored is usually censored on the basis that it contained suicidal content, or you know, advocated for suicide in some way. So it was really like a bad boys books club devoted to subversive literature and banned books, a banned book club. So they started popping up all over America: San Francisco, Chicago, Dallas, all over. And they all are very different. They're very unique. You could even say that the Bohemia Club of San Francisco is a version of a suicide club. And they all come at a time where they're rising. They arise in response to overwhelming oppression, and they turn to literature in order to make their voice heard. It definitely attracted people who are at the end of their rope, and there are a few clubs in which it is all about suicide, but most of them are not. So I think I became attracted to the subject because I'm disabled, and that is people who have my illness, 85% of sufferers opt out. And I think I got attracted to the idea of suicide club in the sense of like facing your own death with eyes wide open, living life to the fullest before you die. And so, because, you know, maybe someday I will take matters into my own hand, or maybe not. But for me, that created a sense of survivorship of like, first of all, the fact that I didn't commit suicide yet means I'm in charge. This is my life. I decided to be here. Nobody's doing this to me. Like, I fully knew that I was going to be in excruciating pain every day for the rest of my life, and I signed up for it, and I'm here. So that is a very empowering thing, is to face your own suicide, and go, okay, I know I have that power. And I keep it in pocket because the pain sometimes gets to be too much. And there are times where I think I can't, live like this forever. Well, once that's in pocket, now what? Life is short, life is short. And being conscious of your own death, being aware of that, and living life to the fullest and appreciating every little part of it. It fills you with gratitude. It fills you with strength. It removes fear from your heart, because when you go into this fight, it's still a life or death fight. You're just not afraid of dying anymore. And when you're in a lot of pain, you're suffering, I mean, most of us are in our ways. Death promises like the ultimate release. That being said, I'm walking a really fine line writing this book, because the reason these books were banned was, like The Sorrows of Young Werther, thousands of people had copycat suicides, and that book inspired them. So I don't want to be too glowing about it. I don't want to inspire thousands of suicides. That's not the point of the book. The point of the book is to inspire survivorship, courage, facing your death and not being afraid of that transition, and not being afraid for somebody else when they're making that transition, because they'll feel your fear. And knowing that there really isn't anything to be afraid of, that it really is a natural part of it's the ultimate, it's the final destination. So for me, it's about death. It's not so much about suicide, but I think suicide is a very important question that we all need to ask ourselves. Like, are you still here? Why? Because it's your own free will and of your own volition. And that's what changes once you face your suicide. Before that, why did my parents do this to me? And society is fucked, and it's everyone else's fault but your own. And once you've come close, like been serious of like, okay, I think I want to die. After that, you're free to live your life as fully as you want to.
Well, and anything that's about, taking your own life or death in general is actually about life. It's never really about death. It's about life.
Right. And it bothers me that I might inspire people, or, I mean, I'm bringing up the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm bringing up some sensitive subject. I mean, the whole subject's sensitive.
Well, I've done a lot of talking about that subject, and it's, I did a Order the Good Death lecture on locations and why people are attracted to certain places, and the Eastern-Western dichotomy of the cultures and all that stuff, all in the name of prevention. But there is that, it's such a strange topic to talk about because of that phenomenon, that it does trigger reactions from people, and it is so delicate. It's not like everything else. I'm like, throw it all out there, dump it out on the table, and let's fuck it up and sort it out. And it's just, there's just so much evidence that you can't do it with that one particular subject. So I think that's what makes it so mysterious and interesting, is why do our brains in that one place, in that one massively important place, are unable to do what we know helps fix stigma and helps people get help, and we can't do it in the ways that we do with everything else. So how do we get around
when
it?
you learn about the viral effects of it, that one suicide can spark off like 20 other suicides, how delicate that system is, that one little contagion can send somebody over the edge, or they were just looking for an excuse, or so that part, the Werther effect, freaks me out, and that's always connected to books, and here that's what I'm writing a book about. And then also, I tend to be a little suicidal myself, and and so what I had to do in order to write this book was read every book that had ever been banned based on suicidality, right? So
yeah, well, and I'm sure getting immersed in it is dangerous sometimes, right?
It has been, yeah, it has been, because I was investigating why do writers and creative people tend to suicide out more often than others, and the truth is they don't. They just manage to express themselves.
Yeah,
But what I found was people who have to put forth a lot of energy without getting any sort of return. So I've been working on this book 2-3 years. And I don't get any rewards. No one's ever read it. No one's ever given me feedback. But I'm investing, I'm putting forth all this energy and I'm not getting anything back. That tends to lead to despair. So I have to draw pictures and painting and do things where I have a sense of completion and a reward to keep the dopamine flowing. But yeah, that's the main.
It's really hard to write without feedback.
Rachel keeps the dopamine flowing with TikTok.
Oh yeah,
That's
it's
the
important.
Well, I mean, I send chapter, I guess you'd say, acts or whatever of my script and then I totally change it. So it's never, like I send it and then I'm like, oh, you shouldn't have read that because now it's way better. But I have to have that feedback or I won't do it. It's what inspires me to keep pushing through it.
Well, I noticed when I stop writing, it's because I don't think anyone cares what I have to say.
Right.
And like, that's what John Law's been great for because he really cares a lot.
Well, and that's the thing about writing that's so weird is that you have the ego to believe that you have something to say that other people should hear. But then that crippling doubt that it's actually anything anyone wants to hear. So it's this weird balance of like insecurity and ego that.
I mean, I think I write from a place of loneliness. And but I don't feel any connection. So it's like I'm writing seeking some connection or some communication and as with Facebook, we're generally talking to ourselves.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We're not actually forging connections with other humans. So but I think every writer, it's a solitary pursuit. You have to spend a lot of hours alone. Focus on whatever you're focused on. I mean, I'm really not fun to hang out with because like anytime in the last 6 months, I mean, all I'm going to talk about is like Native American warfare and no other subject is interesting to me or whatever at the time.
Well, see, that's what I like about you is if I'm not in the middle of a project myself, I'm fascinated with what you're fascinated with. But the problem is we're both fascinated at the same time. It's a battle of which fascination we're going to discuss for 10 hours.
Well, and that's the market right now is everybody's competing for your attention and for your time and what is going to captivate an audience, what is going to get through to anybody. I can post my opinions on Facebook all day long. But a really well-crafted story, it really helped me find my medium of like, how do you catch people in your Charlotte's Web,
Right. And when like the Facebook post, I'll have a Facebook post go viral or I'll have a TikTok go, just like, no one wants to read my fucking stupid script. They want me to make, tease my blind husband and they want me to be an asshole on Facebook. That's it. They're not going to want to read my life's work, my opus. I
spent like 6 months writing some blog post or something. I was so excited, so proud to put it on Facebook and like share it with the people who know me. And I think like 2 people liked it and they probably didn't even open it, or read it or anything. They just liked it. And then, and I'm like, oh, and then I like 3 days later posted a picture of my face and got like 120 likes or something. And I was just like, forget you guys. So unrewarding,
Half the time my stuff that goes viral on Facebook, I didn't even proofread. So it's bullshit. And then I'm just like, oh, Jesus, everybody's reading this. I wasn't even paying attention when I wrote it. And now I
purposely don't edit or don't proofread and people like correct my grammar, the punctuation or something. And I'm just like, no, I'm just vomiting. I'm just spewing stuff. And that's the point.
No, I'm not being graded on this. It's Facebook. I don't have to.
I do it just to bug my little sister because she's the technical editor. So like every time something's out of place, it's just nigging on her, right?
So
that's kind of a strong suit.
Seana, what was your first impression of Rachel?
Well, she was the hostess with the mostest that night. She was very engaging. She was very she didn't seem to have a lot of nervousness about talking in public, and I know I did. And she was she puts everyone at ease. She makes you feel really comfortable. She is very smooth, her public presentation. Yeah, so I think she definitely gave off a professional vibe to me.
Weird.
For those
listeners,
For those listening and watching, Seana's talking about Odd Salon, San Francisco.
Yeah, she was very good at it. She was very passionate about it. And that definitely came across. I think you form impressions of people in the first 5 minutes. And within 5 minutes, I was like, I want to be her friend. You know.
And Rachel, what was your impression of Seana?
I'm trying to remember exactly. I mean, I remember meeting her. It was at a show. She came up and I think you came up and approached me about speaking. I don't know how else we could have, that we could have connected. Because at the shows I was like, hey, and you're pretty quiet and shy, generally speaking. And but she had some super weird idea that I thought was awesome. And I'm like, yeah, that's fucking weird. And it was hard to get a first impression of her because it was in a noisy, busy environment where everybody wants my attention, and I'm trying to, I'll be right there. Yes, hold on a second. I'm doing that.
And I didn't know anybody there at all.
Yeah, but she just kind of, she was kind of shy and not super, everybody else is gregarious and trying to get my attention, and she's like, excuse me. And I have this super fucking weird idea I'd like to talk about. Like, oh, I like that. Okay. And then
do you remember what it was?
No, I don't. Because I've heard a lot of them since then. Since we've been friends, there was Aztec. She's got a lot of amazingly
full of ideas,
fucking rad ideas, and they're kind of all mixed together. But I do remember, like, I've out of the 50 people that night I talked to or met, she stood out. I picked her up and I stuck her like in the front page of like, okay, there's something about her that I like and I want to put on stage, and I did. And her talk was rad and weird, and not everybody got it, which made me like it even more. Because we were trying to appeal. The whole point of Odd Salon was we were trying to get people who might not normally be interested in these interesting history and art and science stories that we knew of, to come in and find out how cool they were. So we're basically recruiting nerds, right? But Seana was already super nerd, like she was already part of the club and been there, like, so she kind of went over the heads of some people. But a lot of people got it, but some people are like, there's a lot of big words in that, and aren't we doing what about boats, and so our crowd at the time was very mixed. And I thought she was brilliant. I thought she was absolutely brilliant. There was something about the way she told her stories and the way that she carried herself that let me know that there was way more to her than she was presenting. And we became really fast friends. I mean, Facebook, we did a lot of that back and forth. But then, she came to me when I got sick, after I got sick and I left San Francisco and I was going through all my horrible stuff. She came to me not once, but twice. Traveled to me, which is not super easy for her because she does have chronic pain, and I was not nearby, and we spent 2 very, very, very fulfilling, interesting bonding visits where she came to me when I was in crisis. And I will never, a lot of my closest, oldest friends didn't come to see me during those times. So it really stood out, her empathy and her kindness and her interest in me and what I was going through, and her ability to understand it in a way that most people couldn't. And that comes from our shared experiences of trauma survivorship and not really, just trying to live and not really care what other people think about it or how we're doing it or if we're believed or not, or, just kind of, in a world of being kind of isolated and individual in a lot of ways, especially as writers as well, we formed a friendship that I think is unusual for most people. And I really appreciate her. I appreciate everything that she's been through. I appreciate her honesty and her forthrightness and her art. And she's, like I said, a brilliant writer. And I love listening to her talk and listening to her stories and about her life and about other stuff. And,
yeah, I think watching Rachel go through, of course, the big one was finding out she had cancer and was pregnant on the same day. And then it just went downhill from there.
It really did. It was speaking of dumpster fires.
That's when you thought it couldn't get any worse, like, oh my God. And
For a while there, it was really like, it was almost comical because it's like, it can't get, oh, hold my beer. Like, it can get totally worse.
Yeah. And she didn't invest a lot of time into eliciting sympathy votes from people or feeling sorry for herself or trying to get other people to feel sorry for her. She was very open. She was very honest. And it was very empowering. Your life was going swimmingly at the time, which compared to hers, like everyone's was.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a sucks to be you kind of thing, but it was like, okay, like, you know, this is what it takes. This is what this is. If this happened to me, if I put myself in her shoes, like this is the kind of strength of character that it takes, the kind of fearlessness that it requires, like for her to choose to have that baby. Right. So to me, she came as a shit show of her life was, her survivorship was exemplary. And that is a gift that you give to other humans, like whatever their struggles are, whatever they're going through. If you can be an example of how to transform hardship, you know, that is to me like true magic. And I don't meet a lot of people like that. No.
This is a question for both of you. What gives you hope?
I don't like hope. Hope was the one evil Pandora didn't let out of the box. Hope has never been something that has helped me survive. So I don't hold it.
Can you explain that? Because I'm fascinated by that. Because for me, hope is somewhat essential, but I want to know can you explain exactly what you're talking about?
My darkest moments when I was in excruciating pain and just actually begging a God that I don't believe in for mercy. It wasn't hope that got me through. It was sheer blind defiance.
Stubbornness and spite.
Yeah. Of like, fuck you world, you know, like it's not going to be, you know, we're not going down without a fight. Yeah. And I don't place a lot of value in hope today either, you know, because I don't know, these might be the good old days. You know, that we look back on with fond nostalgia. And so that's not what keeps me going. It's not what drives me. What drives me is I want to finish this book before I die. And preferably I'd like to finish this book and get started on the next one and finish it too, you know, and my happiness is not of high value to me. I'm not looking to be happy. I'm looking to survive. And the only reason I'm looking to survive is to get my work done that I came here to do. I know why I'm here. I have purpose. I have direction. I know exactly why I'm on this earth and what it is that's expected of me. And I just want to do a good job of it. Being happy, being fulfilled, being, optimism just wasn't an asset. Being an asshole was an asset. I mean, you know, being defiant about, no, I'm not, you know. What about you, Rachel? You feel hope is evil, or?
I agree. I don't put a lot of stock in it. I mean, it's never been very beneficial to me. It's never done anything but disappoint, really.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, that sounds really negative. It's not that I'm a total nihilist or anything. It's just that I just don't think hope is a very realistic way to survive. I think that, you know, I don't have hope that I think everything's going to be terrible. I'm sure it is, you know, of course it's going to be, and probably going to get worse than terrible. But that doesn't mean that I'm bummed out about it. It just means that I think acceptance and fortitude and stubbornness and defiance. I think, you know, you go down swinging, and that's all that I hope for, is that I go down swinging. That's my biggest hope, is that I think the only thing that I hope for is that my children will be okay, relatively speaking, and that I will never, and that I won't die on my knees, that I will go out swinging and take everybody I can with me. And I hope that's what happens in the end. But otherwise, I don't see much of a point in hoping things will get better, or hoping everything will be perfect someday, or there'll be world peace, because there won't be. So
Kind of
Not
like
with that attitude.
well, I mean, it's not, if my attitude powered the world, that'd be fucking fantastic, but it doesn't. So
well, the world champion bull rider, when he's getting on the bull, what is he hoping for? That he survives it, I mean.
yeah, he's not hoping that he
The odds
solves
are he's gonna get
there's
squished.
cancer by the bull, right? He hopes he gets through it in one piece.
Yeah, I mean, what you said, Rachel, reminded me of Emiliano Zapata. He said, "I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees."
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
But hope just doesn't really have. I just don't have a lot of room for it. Hold on, my sexy back phone is ringing.
well, like she said, it sets you up for disappointment, and when you learn that it's your expectations that causes the disappointment, not the world, but that you wanted more.
No, I get it. I get it. Yeah, I feel that sometimes. I sometimes get upset with my hope.
But everyone has different survivorship. So there are people who do need hope and who thrive on it, and it does do wonders for. There are people who really need sympathy, a lot of it.
But it falls into that category of prayer, hope and prayer and faith, and those are all wonderful, beautiful ideas, but they're not tangible. So
well, I mean, hope, like Václav Havel, the playwright and former president of the Czech Republic, he has some wonderful things about hope. He says hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well. Hope is that you're doing the right thing no matter what happens.
I like that.
I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said.
Well, the chapter I'm working on, it's one of the suicide clubs. It's the Native Americans. They were called the Crazy Dogs Wishing to Die. And basically they would harness the suicidal for warfare purposes and send them in as kind of like shock troops. And their role was really, like I said, demonstrating shamelessness, was to demonstrate fearlessness and like a disregard for life. And the typical battle cry was today is a good day to die. And
that's where they got it in Star Trek, the Klingons.
Yes.
Perhaps today is a good day to die.
Crazy Horse. Yeah, because that is a warrior mentality. And for me, that's what spoke to my survivorship, was for 100 years during the Indian Wars, when these warriors were going into battle, they had no hope of winning. They might win the battle, no hope of winning the war. They had no hope of ever outpowering the white people. They had no chance. And what they were fighting for was their identity, their way of life. So I think, they must have been filled with a lot of hope and feeling like everything's going to shit and I'm going to die and everyone is going to die with me. But we're standing up for what we believe in. That's pretty powerful. And, even the people who won't get vaccinated, I have some grudging respect for, like, if that's a cause that you're willing to put your life on the line for, me personally, not so much, but like, my father was doing bail reform and we had death threats. Our address was posted online and people coming saying they were going to come kill us and everything. And I was like, Dad, could you like lay off, provoking people to come kill us or whatever? And he said, I believe in this cause so much. I think it's so important that if I was murdered because of it, like, that would be a good way to die. If I was killed saving my son.
That's what Martin Luther King, if you listen to that last speech that he made, he says, I may not get there. He knew he was going to die. He says, I may not get there with you.
Crazy Horse had a vision that 7 generations later we would get there. And I think MLK did too.
Mm-hmm. Well, what was I going to say, Rachel?
I'm sorry.
You
What's
are
wrong?
going to make a non sequitur transition by starting with, by the way.
By the way, no, I wasn't.
No, I don't know. I don't know what you're going to say.
I don't know where we're at. What happened?
I'm sorry.
Oh, you know what just happened is you just gave him too much to think about. He's like, now he's like swimming.
Well, it's a
Well,
lot. It's a lot to take in, but go ahead.
Yeah, I really, that's the first time I've heard a definition of hope where I was like on board with that, of like, if that's what hope is, then yeah, you know.
Well, I was just thinking about
read Vaclav Havel has a lot of quotes about hope that are very good and
I was
reasonable.
thinking about how, when does that word pop up in my vernacular ever? Oh, it's when I'm saying, I hope I don't fuck this up. I hope it's going to be okay.
Wishful
hope
thinking.
It works. That's the
Yeah.
only time. Is when I hope that I'm not making something worse, or I take a big risk and I'm like, okay, I hope that isn't going to blow up in my face, but you know, it mostly has to do with my kid. Like, I hope I'm not fucking up my kids really bad. And
I think for both Brian and I, we have conditions that are not only extremely difficult to deal with on a daily basis, but are only getting worse from here. We're not getting better. We're getting older, and it's going to get harder. And so I think you're faced with that question a lot more often of like, why am I here? Why do I choose to suffer like this? What am I doing it for? And that does become very clear. I mean, I've noticed in comparison to my peers that I have a much more defined sense of purpose. And I think that's because it's such a struggle to stay alive, to stay optimistic, to have a positive attitude about life in general, and to not despair, to fall into a pit of despair, and to be able to model that for other human beings that are going through hardship and are going to have to learn all these things on their own. Sometimes you're just not in the mood, and to be anybody's silver lining, or so.
No, I was thinking about this, recently. I was thinking, I don't want to get into the, I mean, right now my mind says, I don't see myself at 70 or 80. I really don't. And I don't know what that would be like, but it would seem like, based on the trajectory that I'm on now, it's probably not going to be very pretty. And I think, God, I have thought about suicide a few times in my life, seriously. And my uncle killed himself, which I have a lot of anger about, because he was a comedian with my father. They had an act together, and I know, based on what everybody said about him, is that he was so loving and kind, and I wanted to know that, and I didn't get to. I remember, I have one memory of him doing a 3-legged man dance, and that's it. That's all I remember. I remember coming down when I was, probably like somewhere between 3 and 5, somewhere in there, and seeing a bunch of instruments all over the floor, like the cases on the floor with the instruments inside them opened up. And I remember that, but I have so much anger that I felt like he and I would have bonded, even, in some ways more than my own father. And I'm very angry that I have that. I don't know him.
When you say you're angry, is that at him or the universe?
I'm angry that he didn't stay. That he didn't make the choice to survive. But then I don't know the pain that he was going in. I mean, first of all, he was diagnosed as schizophrenic, so he had a lot of paranoia, everything from aliens to the government being after him and all that stuff. So he had that thing going from him. And then later on, they found that there may have been some drugs involved that made that worse. Or maybe that was the real issue. I don't know.
Maybe it wasn't. Yeah.
I have a schizophrenic uncle as well, and he's definitely, I mean, all the kids' favorite uncle, right? And he was deeply schizophrenic. I mean, 86 different voices going on in his head at all times. And anyways, there was a lot of lore because schizophrenia is so misunderstood. There was a lot of lore about how he became schizophrenic, how he coped with schizophrenia. I was even told at a certain age, the schizophrenia just went away. He just suddenly wasn't schizophrenic anymore and was only dealing with the side effects of his medications. So I think when you have a schizophrenic family member, it definitely impacts everybody. Everybody had a different response to that, you know? I'm sure you will find like other members of your family who feel completely differently about it than you do. But that's
Yeah,
hard
I
to
mean,
sort out.
I don't talk to my father about it because, you know, he's very sensitive, and he doesn't, you know, like for instance, you know, I asked him if he plays music and he said, no, it's too painful to listen to music, you know? And so
Oh,
if I go into with that,
terrible.
yeah. And if I go into, you know, I've asked him some things but I allow him to kind of tell me about, you know, his brother, my uncle. So, but
Now, your brother also has the same uh disease as you?
yeah, we both had Usher syndrome type
Usher.
2A, and which causes blindness and deafness. And yeah, he's just further, you know, he's almost, you know, he's 12 years older than I am. And so
Oh,
his
wow.
progression is further, you know,
So you get to watch how it's gonna go.
I did. And that scared the shit out of me.
I
It really
bet.
did. I mean, it really was painful because I remember seeing early on, you know, like when I was like 10, I remember him like searching for things and being completely across the other side of the room, going, I can see it from right here,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm like, what's that about? And then as it got worse, it was very, very difficult to watch because I'm like, that's going to be me. And I don't want
Hmm.
to be like that, you know, meaning looking for things and that kind of dead stare, you know.
Yeah.
um and it has been, it's been very, very difficult, but it's also been amazing to watch him, you know, turn it
Overcome.
around and embrace it. And you know, he's doing very, very well now, and he's happy. And um you know, but it all comes down to the, because I know that, you know, I know in my own, when I started to really realize that it was, because I was told that I would not really have symptoms until I was into my 50s, you know, like I wouldn't lose the ability to read or drive until then.
Wow,
and
wow.
and so when I started to realize that I was going to lose it much sooner, that's when things got weird in it. And I was like, I don't know if I want to be around here anymore. I don't want to deal with this. And so I can relate to suicidal ideations because I've had them a lot.
Oh, you have to. You know, and I think you know, it's probably a blessing and a curse that you've watched your brother walk this path ahead of you. Um, but that probably increases both of your survival. You have to survive for the other one. If you were to despair, you know, what is that going to say to your brother, or vice versa? If he had committed suicide, you know, what's that message sending to you? And
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was difficult to watch, but you know, it was also, I think in one respect, I'm very fortunate to be in this position because I saw what he did in order to adapt and so on. So and he's, to this day, he's a resource for adaptation to blindness. You know, I call him all the time and saying, oh, so like for instance, I hate using public restrooms, and I'm like, I've been recently, I'm like, so what do you do? You know, like I don't want to be feeling around the urinal, like, and like you know,
Nobody
rubbing
thinks
my,
about that with blind people, but yeah, it's
you know,
not
like I don't want
good.
to rub my dick against the urinal, you know, like trying to find it. you know,
Why would you
or
fight?
sit in somebody's shit, you know, like that's been smeared on the seat,
Yeah.
I get
which
it.
I've seen. We've all seen that, right? We've all been to bars and seen that, you
Lucky
know.
you can't see it anymore.
Yeah, but no, because before I could go, oh, there's shit on the seat next door.
Oh, dude.
You know what I mean? Like that's how I dealt with. Now it's like I have to ask somebody, is
Oh
there shit on
man.
this seat? Um,
Just call somebody
so
in. Excuse me. I didn't need your eyes for a second.
yeah, so I usually say to Rachel all the time, can I use your eyes? So can I use your eyes to
Never in a
see
public
shit?
restroom. You've never asked me that in a public restroom.
No, because I don't use public restrooms generally. So
I can see why.
so, and it's funny because when I was assessed, you know, for services for the blind, that was the first question I asked. I'm like, how do I deal with a public restroom? And the woman was like, I don't know, you're a guy. I don't know what to say. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's the thing I didn't think about. My friend's in a wheelchair and she's like very susceptible to COVID and she can't get it. And so had never thought about when you're wheeling your wheelchair, you're running through all the piss and shit that's on the ground and that's where your hands are. And I was like, oh, but I never would have
Oh
thought of
yeah.
that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a side rail for, unless she uses a power chair. There's a side rail, so she's not technically not touching the ground. Her hands could brush against the wheel, but
Well,
she
now I had a friend who was going blind. She didn't have ushers, she had something else. And but she was getting to the point where she couldn't read, you know, a label 2 inches in front of her face. And I came and I asked you for advice and you gave me some great tips. And she ended up committing suicide.
because
And
of
I've
my
been kind of,
tips.
no, but I've been
Yes,
kind of
your
reluctant to
advice
talk
was
to you
terrible.
because, you know, there was everyone else blamed her mental illnesses or whatever, but there was an awareness with me that was the reason. And when I would spend time with her, I had a really hard time staying in awareness of her blindness. So I would be like, oh, look at this, you know, and then be like, oh, wait, you can't read that. Or, you know, it was, we'd be hanging out for hours and I'd have to like remember that she couldn't see. And it would have to be through her like demonstrating it in some way. So I'm wondering, Rachel, if you have that problem of like having to go, oh yeah, you can't see that.
Not very often because I pay such close attention to people and I'm always trying to meet them where they're at. But there was a lot of abstract things that didn't occur to me about blindness that I've had to kind of try. It's really hard it's things that you would never even think of, like the toilet thing. You'd never even think of it if it wasn't an issue for you. So things like knives sticking up instead of down in the dishwasher, or doors being ajar, or reading people, you know,
Which you left ajar the other day. I meant to mention that.
You walked right into that one.
So let's talk about that.
Talk about what?
You left the bathroom light on today.
No,
Mister?
I did, because you're going to go
like
into
that.
it.
Why do you even turn it on? You don't need it.
Because I like to feel alive, and light, even though it hurts my eyes, it makes me feel alive.
Anyway, there was a lot of things that just didn't occur. You know, he talks a lot about not being able to read people. So without the visual of somebody's face or their body language, it's hard to read people's tone. One thing that super annoyed me for a long time, and I finally just had to make myself get over it, was whenever he'd walk in the room, he needs to know if I'm in the room or not. So every time he walks in the room, I say something. And I hated doing that at first. I'm like, because I didn't have anything to say. So he walks in the room, I'm reading or something, like, hi. I just said hi to you 4 other times, like in the past hour, each time you walk in the room, but he needs to know that. So that was something I had to like get over feeling silly about. I mean, I guess it just felt weird, like, because I just said hi to him 20 minutes ago now, hi again. And also, yeah, just letting him know where I'm at.
I think, Rachel, I have a little bit of cognitive disability, so that might be part of the hi.
Hi, it's me again. But if I don't say it, he'll go, are you in here? And he used to always ask me, so what are you working on? What are you working on? And again, it would annoy me because I've been like, usually because I'm doing something stupid. So I didn't want to have to say it out loud. You know, I'm reorganizing my rocks, like, or whatever I'm doing. That, like, if someone could see what I was doing, they wouldn't even, they'd just be like, oh, you're so frustrated to wander off. But now I have to like explain myself all the time. But and it felt intrusive almost. But then I realized he just doesn't know what I'm doing. He doesn't know if I'm reading or if I'm sleeping or if I'm, you know, busy or not busy. And it helps him to know that. So it was more kind of these abstract things that I had to learn. I was uber almost too aware of the obvious things, you know, making sure he didn't fall off a wall. Or I love watching people watching with him is so fun because they're so dumb. It's so bad. There's just such a, because I pay such close attention to people in general, but also people just don't, there's something that doesn't click over with him, you know, for them with him a lot of the times. And my favorite, this is my absolute favorite, is when we're at a restaurant or something and they want to give me the bill all the time because they don't want to have to deal with that. So
Awkward.
and I go, no, and I just go, mm-mm, and I make them do it, right? And so they do this. And he doesn't reach for it because he doesn't know that they're, and so they'll look at me and I'll go, you have to take the next thinking step.
Oh man.
And sometimes they'll shake it. They're like,
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, no, that's not it. And then it's slowly, they have to use a critical thinking to go through. Oh, I have to use my words. Here you go, sir. That's all you have to say. You just have to, you know, say that you're there. Here's your bill, sir. And then he'll reach out and you can hand it to him. But it takes so long for people to switch gears and do that because they're so used to nonverbal communication. So I find it fascinating to see what people, you know, can you tell us where this thing is? Oh, it's right past that big building over there. Okay, try again. Details, please. You know,
But no, the hearing is affected as well.
What?
Yeah.
Are you losing your hearing?
Yeah. Oh, that joke is a really good one.
Hey, easy. Yes, it is affected. I have about a 30% hearing loss. Rachel probably say about 70.
It's 30, but you won't wear your new devices, so it's more because
I'm taking Shauna's lead and being defiant.
It's so annoying.
That's what I've
He's
heard.
got new ones that work better, but he doesn't like them because they're uncomfortable. Or I don't know.
My father died of ALS, Lou Gehrig's, and was losing the ability to do anything. But anyways, he had lost his hearing long before. He just hated them. They're just miserable. They just make him miserable. It's really hard to wear.
I don't mind them. I just don't like the business model of, businesses that provide hearing devices now. It's like everything else. They're going to subscription based. Like, for instance, last time I was trying to get the right device, and then the last thing they mentioned, they're like, well, you could get this device that is implanted in your ear and you have to be replaced every 30 days or whatever. And it's $3,000 a year.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's a subscription hearing device, right? So that's their new model. Is like everything else is a fucking subscription. And it's sick.
It is.
Especially when it's in healthcare. You know what I mean? So
yeah, there's a lot of problems to it being like free market capitalism and healthcare.
I was really shocked to find out that nothing covers hearing devices. Nothing. There's no insurance. There's no disability. There's nothing. And they're so expensive. But he's bought them and he won't put them in out of spite.
I'm trying to wear the ones I have out. That's what
they're worn out, Brian, is what I'm saying. You're there. They're worn out.
I support you in your rebellion, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. So, where can we find your writings?
Oh, I think I still have a blog up, but it was mostly San Francisco based stuff. And it's called sacredprecinct.org. And
Okay. Sacred Precinct
because now I don't live in San Francisco.
It's called Sacred Precinct, like
Sacred Precinct, 7 miles by 7 miles, you know.
Okay. Well, I will put it in the show description for anybody who wants to check that
I'm
out.
not really here to promote anything or promote myself in any way, so, but thank you. I have released myself from such notions at this point.
Okay.
But yes, I appreciate it.
Well, then I will not promote you
I
at
did
all.
some advertising for John Law. I feel like that's pretty good. I promoted something.
So is there,
You promoted the man who involved in stuff that doesn't want to be promoted.
Yeah, it doesn't need
Doesn't
it
even
either.
exist. John Law isn't real. He doesn't even exist.
I
he's
agree
like
with
Kaiser
that.
Soze?
Kind of.
I was wondering, I mean, Brian, you kind of like, it's kind of like Rachel imagined you. Like,
It is
I
kind
wasn't sure if you were real or if like Rachel made you up, Because it's like all of a sudden her life's like shithole, everything's going to hell. And then all of a sudden, oh, here's this handsome, talented, amazing man who wants to marry me and raise my kids and everything else. And I was like, yeah, right.
right. Well, and then also he's
doesn't happen.
spent so much of his time, kind of sheltered in this that he doesn't know a lot of like half the bands you met. He doesn't know any of that. So he doesn't even know. So it's almost like he is like something I conjured up, and now we have to teach him like about culture, about bands.
I don't want to teach him anything. I like him just the way he is.
Leave him
In fact, my
perfectly.
first response when he asked me to do this was like, oh God, he's so sweet and innocent.
That's not true.
I'm like Britney Spears. I'm not that innocent.
You do give off an innocent vibe. I gotta tell you.
He has an AVN award. He's not that innocent.
And
Did you know that?
An Indiana award?
No, AVN, an Adult Video News Award.
Really?
Yeah, I used to work for a company called Digital Playground, and I was a project manager for the company, but I also was a screenwriter under the pseudonym Max Massimo, and I wrote
No
Pirates.
way.
And I wrote Pirates
You
2,
wrote the top
Stagnetti's Revenge.
grossing adult film.
You
Top
wrote
grossing adult
porno?
film.
See?
That's
Not
like my
that
childhood. You would have like fit right in.
That sounds horrible.
That is way cool. That does sound horrible.
Okay, Sean, that's how I got involved. Is our mutual friend said, do you have any interest in me? And not as a date, but like because I needed to talk to somebody about the screenwriting. Do you have any interest in meeting a former pornographer who is now doing disability shock videos? I was like, yes.
No.
Yes, of course I do. Yes, right now. Why are you asking me stupid questions?
Wow. Wow. So why aren't
description.
you making us millions of dollars, Brian, and supporting us in our old age just writing porno? all
Stupid
day long?
integrity.
Right? Good porno.
There's a lot of sadness involved. And it was it's exploitation, at its simplest, but it's still exploitation. And it caused me a lot of pain and everybody that I worked with a lot of pain and suffering. So I got out. It's not something I'm proud of. I'm really not. It was a fear-based decision. And had I, been able to do it over again, I would not have done it. What I wanted to do is be an actor and a director and really, and underneath all of that, I wanted to be a comedian. Every time I get somewhere, my eyesight would get worse. So I get scared. The fear would increase, and then it would get in the way of everything. And so that was what that was all about.
And now you have a seeing eye bitch.
Word.
That's awesome.
You're talking about Burnett, right?
No, I was talking about Rachel.
But I only get to be a bitch so often. That there's in public a lot of times people make me furious with him, and he gave me this stupid lecture about how you can't be mean to people in that situation because it makes them, it makes the stigma of the disability even more. You know, they have to have positive experiences with people. They can't have negative. And I was like, well, that's no fun. You have a stick that I can fucking hit people with, and they deserve to be hit with a stick, and I don't get to do it because fine.
Well, I watched your stand-up and I thought it was really good, and I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. I think there's something very powerful about what you're doing that will have a net positive effect on a lot of people.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm still learning, and I have a long way to go, but you know, I started out, you know, in LA, and my friend ran a room at the Derby, my friend Matt. And you know the Derby in Los Angeles? It's where it's in on Los Feliz Boulevard.
I've never been to LA.
Oh, okay. Well, it's where the last scene in Swingers, the movie with John Favreau and Vince Vaughn, it's the last scene. That's where that. So he had a you know, a show there, and that was when a lot of like Al Madrigal started out, and he performed there. Gabriel Iglesias, Kyle Kinane, Matt Bronger. Who else? But a lot of people are, you know, working comedians now that started out there, so it's really neat. But I stunted myself by stopping because I was so scared and trying to find my way in this world. And so I'm very grateful that it's really because I've met Rachel and our son, and it's changed my entire reality. And I'm very grateful because I don't know if I would have done it if it had not been for them.
He sees me going out and putting myself out there to be an asshole all the time, and I don't care.
Right.
So that's right. Have you seen the TikTok? Because the TikTok is mostly his idea, and they're really funny. And
yeah, I think they're great. I mean, I like just telling the story of Brian. I had to tell it the other day to a friend of mine for some reason. I think it was about staying positive or something despite hardship. And I was like, I have this friend who has this horrible, you know, reality that he has to face, and he just like he gets on stage and just crushes. He's hysterical. And you know, and not only that, Brian, but you're extremely good looking, you're very personable. I just think you have like real star power.
Great voice, right? Great radio voice.
Oh yeah.
And
when it's relaxed,
you give a great impression.
He comes up with most of the ideas, and they're usually way like meaner than like I have to go, we can't do that. We can't do that because people think I'm really that person, and they're gonna like shoot me because I'm being an asshole to you. They're gonna like somebody's gonna.
But that's totally what's going on.
Real name, like
that's what's going on through his head when like the person's trying to hand him the check and you guys are giving each other looks. He's going, what are they saying behind my back, or what are they doing?
Right.
You know, like all his like paranoias and fears. It is good to poke fun at that, you know.
I think they're fun, but you know, he wants to take it to a level where I'm like, that's not appropriate. Because people are gonna get pissed off at me, and I think I really do that.
Be the villain, Rachel. It's not that hard. You just said you didn't care what people think.
I love being the villain, but like we have one where I drive past him on my way to get a massage, and he's like, you were supposed to pick me up 5 hours ago. I've been walking for however many miles, right? He's out with the dog, and I'm like, oh, sorry. Well, you better hurry home because I'm hungry and I'm gonna want dinner when I get back. Like he needs to go. Oh, well, can you give me a ride? Oh, I'm really busy. I have to be. And he goes, well, you at least have some water because we've been walking for miles. And I look at my water, and it was a little note that says like, bring water to the massage. I'm like, ooh, no, sorry. Then I drive off. I'm like, unbelievable. Like he's so needy. And then when the next scene is me at the house, and they're coming down the driveway. And I'm like, where have you been? I've been out for like, and he's like, well, we got lost. I get disoriented. I'm like, well, my cake isn't even going to be ready. So, I have some water for you. It's for in my car. It's been warm. And he just goes and like rolls his eyes. And I'm like, oh, he's so ungrateful. And he wanted me to at some point during that say, like, I'm not going to a massage. I'm going to like, what was it? Like, I'm going to go entertain the basketball team or something. Like, I was going to
no, it was
I love you. And I was going to say whatever, loser or whatever. And I'm like,
you're going to say you're going to a gangbang.
Yeah. I'm like, that's
there's the porno writer coming out.
What do you know, like, I can't give you a ride right now. I have to go bang the entire soccer team or whatever. Like, no, I'm not saying that. And then when I tell you I love you, just like peel out and say whatever. I'm like, no. It has to be funny, not like super sad and gross, weird.
But as we said, everything is sad.
Everything's sad.
Oh yeah.
So, Seana, so is there anything you'd like to share with us before we depart?
Wow, that's a broad question. No, I guess my only message is, is to stay strong, be brave, be courageous, take on your challenges, like grab the bull by the horns. Like I feel like that attitude is much needed, and that the fight for survival is a very aggressive act. So like, don't be like Rachel, be like Brian, be like me. That's what I have to say.
So I've been asking this, and I may change this before this is all over, but I'm going to ask you the two questions, and you don't have to think about it too much. Just the first thing that comes into your head.
Okay.
If you had an omnipotent voice where you could speak to every living being on earth in their own language, and you could speak to everyone at the same time, what would you say to them? Us.
That it's a miracle that we're here at all, and our time is finite, and that you have a very short period of time to do the work you came here to do. So remember, life is short.
Thank you.
Memento mori.
There you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, what would your epitaph say?
Ooh. Oh, that's a good question, but I don't know. I think it's changed recently. I would like maybe the poem Invictus, I am the I am the captain of the ship. I am the master of my fate. Yeah, something triumphant. But I won't have a tombstone. I'm gonna be thrown into a volcano.
Okay.
Which one?
Is that possible, Rachel? Is that something you can done even after
It depends on
death?
I think country, if in certain countries, sure, it is.
It's private land, so
If it's private, yeah. I mean,
But it's a matter of even
let's put it
getting
this
up
way.
to it, because it's so hot just getting.
oh no, it's like
You have to be dropped in by a helicopter.
Well, it's the only active volcano in New Mexico, but it's currently not doing its thing. Like,
So
10,000
technically you're not allowed to bury people in private land unless you get a permit. There are ways to get permits. And in which case, if you could get the permit, I'm not sure anyone babysits you while you do it. So I don't know, because it's hard to get the permit, because you have to know where the groundwater is and bury certain. So I think it's possible that if no one oversees the burial, but you get permission to do it, that once you're on your land, you can do whatever the fuck you want.
we got
I
a
don't know.
permit.
I'll have to ask Timothy.
We got a permit, and then the only thing that we neglected to do is, I guess you're supposed to like if there's graves that are just in the middle of nowhere like that, you have to register them on some kind of map. Like, it has to be on a map for future generations to know not to dig there or something like that. And that's the one thing we just forgot to do. But
I mean, how are you going to get caught doing that? Forgetting that. It's not that big of a deal.
it's my final destination, and I feel I'm gonna just put the GPS coordinates, like, if found, please return to. And
If found. Don't call the
throw me in
coroner,
the volcano.
to this location. I have a permit.
Yeah.
It's okay, I have a permit.
Yeah, and then I get to haunt everybody that comes there, and so I'm stoked about that too.
Ooh, haunted volcano.
The next time we talk, we'll have to talk about Ghost.
Oh yeah, I got tons of stories. You guys are coming to New Mexico?
The hope is, yeah, for sure. We can talk offline about that.
Yeah.
For sure.
There's a plan for that.
All right.
And we can talk about my apartment, because Sean came to my apartment and it was spooky. I had a spooky death apartment.
What
That was
apartment?
fucked up. It's the murder slot.
The murder slot, the apartment in Sacramento, the creepy, horrible apartment that I was in when my dad was dying.
It was horrible. It was like so scary. And there was this ditch out back, and like you didn't, there was things going on back there that you did not want, it like satanic rituals, and like you don't even want to know.
My cousin came lived with me for 1 month, and he's like, I'm not, no fucking way, I'm out, because he had this thing. And he's just like, and the murder slot, yeah, that weird thing behind the, yeah,
She's not exaggerating.
it was creepy.
It really was. It was the worst.
All right. Well, we'll leave it with that. Well, listen, Seana, thank you so much for being here and sharing what is alive within you. Deeply appreciate it. And when is your book? When do you think that'll be out?
Oh, I have a lot of self-imposed deadlines that I miss, but when the journey has come to an end, it's become a journey now.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to reading that journey. And
Yeah, you are. It's gonna be
Ra-
excellent, and you won't be disappointed at all.
make sure that you read the audiobook so I can hear your voice.
Ah, good point.
Love to hear it.
I will do that.
Yeah, very important. I really like when authors read their own works. It feels like, I'm inside their head or having a conversation with them. And so I
Interesting.
really enjoy it when authors read their own works. Rachel, did you have anything you want to say before we close out?
No, well, maybe. I think that, we talked a lot about death and about living for the moment and all that stuff. And I think that you shouldn't wait till your deathbed to tell people how you really feel about them, and that you should just really take the time now to tell them to fuck off. Just tell them now, so that you don't have to
Agreed.
do it all in one.
1, 2,
That's all.
3. No.
Don't wait till it's too late to tell people to go fuck themselves.
Yeah,
Is
correct.
it, are you saying that because I said if you don't rate, subscribe, and review, you can.
I'm saying that because I think it's funny, Brian, but you set the tone. So
I did. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening on Apple Podcasts and watching on YouTube. This is The Blind Men in Black. I'm here with my wife and co-host Rachel Snyder and our very special guest, Seana Miracle. Thank you so much for being here. And now we are going to have our very awkward and serious ending.
so it's serious.
I don't know. I'm just saying stuff.
Okay. Stop saying words. Please stop saying words.
All right, we're out.